Years, I didn't really appreciate Royal Ascot, almost in any shape or form, and I eventually worked out that it is probably some of the best racing you see, flat racing you see in Britain, and certainly in a week. So I have since really enjoyed going, particularly, oddly enough, the first day's racing, but also that Thursday day, the Gold Cup day's racing.
After 70 years together, Prince Philip did the unthinkable. He abandoned the Queen, the woman he vowed to stand beside forever, left alone in the palace. The world was stunned. What could drive a man to walk away after 7 decades? Rumours swirled, whispers of betrayal. Royal insiders stayed silent. Until now. Princess Anne just exposed the shocking truth her father kept hidden for years.
Yeah, I mean, the pack-away refrigerator, for instance, it's all very well now. You look back and say, well, but what you didn't know is what it was competing against in other refrigerators.
What she revealed will leave you speechless. This isn't the love story we were told. The real reason Prince Philip left will break your heart and change royal history forever. The mystery deepened when Princess Anne, their only daughter, finally spoke about her father's decision. Her brothers, King Charles and Prince Andrew, supported what she revealed. But to understand why Prince Philip made this choice in his final years, we need to go back to the beginning, to where their remarkable story started. The first time Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip crossed paths was in 1934 at a family wedding. He was 13 years old and she was just 8. At that age, there was nothing particularly memorable about their meeting. They were simply 2 young people from royal families attending the same event. Neither of them could have imagined what the future held. 5 years passed before they met again, and this time, everything changed. Princess Elizabeth was now 13, and Philip had grown into an 18-year-old cadet. The occasion was a visit by the royal family to the Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth, Devon. Elizabeth arrived with her parents and her younger sister Margaret. The plan was to meet with the cadets and attend a chapel service, but an outbreak of mumps and chickenpox disrupted the schedule. Instead of the formal chapel service, the royal family stayed at the headmaster's house. Prince Philip was among the cadets who had not fallen ill, and he was asked to help entertain the young princesses. For a while, they sat inside making conversation, but Philip soon grew restless. Being the energetic young man he was, he suggested they go outside. What happened next would change Elizabeth's life forever. Philip began showing off his athletic abilities. He played croquet with enthusiasm, jumped over tennis nets with ease, and displayed a carefree confidence that captivated the teenage princess. Elizabeth watched him intently, fascinated by his spirit and charm. According to those who knew her, she fell in love with him that very day. Years later, she would say that she never looked at anyone else after that afternoon in Dartmouth. From that moment on, Elizabeth held Philip in her heart. As he went off to serve with the Royal Navy during the war years, they began exchanging letters. She kept a photograph of him in her bedroom, a clear sign of her deep admiration. While Philip was away in the Pacific, fighting in the war, Elizabeth thought of him constantly. She was young, but her feelings were genuine and unwavering. By 1946, Philip had returned from the Pacific Theatre, and his relationship with Princess Elizabeth grew stronger. That summer, during a stay at Balmoral, he proposed to her. In a letter he wrote at the time, Philip expressed his happiness. He mentioned how fortunate he felt to have survived the war, to have witnessed victory, and to have been given the chance to rest and readjust. But above all, he wrote about falling completely and unreservedly in love, which made all troubles seem small in comparison. Elizabeth said yes without hesitation. She knew Philip was the one she wanted to spend her life with. However, not everyone shared her certainty. Her father, King George VI, had serious reservations about the match. He worried that Elizabeth was too young and that she was settling for the first man she had fallen for. Perhaps, he thought, she needed more time and more experience before making such a significant decision. The king hoped she might change her mind if given the opportunity to meet other suitable men. Beyond her father's concerns, there was resistance within the broader royal family and among certain members of the establishment. Despite Philip being of royal blood and a direct descendant of Queen Victoria, which made him and Elizabeth third cousins, many viewed him with suspicion. Some thought he was too direct in his manner, too rough around the edges, too German, too Greek, and not English enough to marry the future queen. His background and personality clashed with the traditional expectations of what a royal consort should be. But Elizabeth refused to back down. She had made up her mind, and her determination was absolute. She loved Philip deeply and could not imagine marrying anyone else. The royal family kept the engagement quiet for nearly a year, hoping perhaps that time would change her feelings. It did not. Finally, in July 1947, after Elizabeth celebrated her 21st birthday, the formal announcement of their engagement was made public. For Philip to marry Elizabeth, significant sacrifices were required. He had to renounce his Danish and Greek royal titles, leaving behind his heritage and identity. He also needed to convert from the Greek Orthodox Church to the Church of England. These were not small changes, but Philip agreed to them willingly. His love for Elizabeth meant more to him than titles or tradition. On October the 3rd, 1947, the Archbishop of Canterbury formally received Philip into the Church of England. He also adopted a new surname, Mountbatten, anglicising his identity to fit his new life. On November the 20th, 1947, Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip were married at Westminster Abbey in London. The ceremony was a grand affair attended by royalty and dignitaries from around the world. After the wedding, they travelled to Broadlands in Hampshire for their honeymoon, staying at the home of Philip's uncle, Earl Mountbatten. For a brief moment, they were simply a newly married couple enjoying the first days of their life together. At this point, neither of them could have fully understood how dramatically their lives would change. Philip continued his career in the Royal Navy, advancing quickly through the ranks. A year after their wedding, their first child, Prince Charles, was born. 2 years later, Princess Anne arrived. Philip's naval career flourished, and he was eventually posted to Malta. Elizabeth joined him there whenever possible, while their children remained in England under the care of nannies and family members. For a short time, they lived a relatively normal life, as normal as royalty could be. Philip enjoyed his work and thrived in his role as a naval officer. He had ambitions and a clear sense of purpose. Elizabeth, though a princess, was not yet queen. They had time to be a young married couple, to grow together and to build their family. Both of them believed they would have many more years before the weight of the crown fell upon Elizabeth's shoulders. They imagined a future where Philip could continue his naval career and Elizabeth could ease into her royal duties gradually. But fate had other plans for them. In 1952, just 5 years after their wedding, tragedy struck the royal family. King George VI fell seriously ill and passed away unexpectedly. Elizabeth and Philip were on a safari trip in Kenya when the devastating news reached them. Philip was the one who had to tell his wife that her father had died. Elizabeth understood immediately what this meant. At just 25 years old, she was now Queen of England. Philip, who was 30 at the time, faced an entirely different reality. His life, his career, and his identity were about to change in ways he could never have fully prepared for. They cut their trip short and returned to the United Kingdom immediately. Upon their arrival, Elizabeth became Queen Elizabeth II. But Philip's title did not change in the same way. He was not given the title of King Consort. Instead, he became the Royal Consort, a supporting role with no formal power or clearly defined responsibilities. For Philip, this meant giving up everything he had worked for in the Royal Navy. His promising career, his ambitions, and his sense of purpose were suddenly secondary to his wife's new position. The couple also had to leave their home at Clarence House and move to Buckingham Palace. The palace was grand and historic, but it also represented a loss of privacy and personal freedom. Their lives were no longer their own. On June 2nd, 1953, a year after Elizabeth ascended to the throne, her coronation took place at Westminster Abbey in London. It was a momentous occasion, watched by millions. After the Archbishop of Canterbury completed the ceremony, Philip was the first person to kneel before the new monarch. He pledged to be her loyal subject for life, promising his devotion and support. But making that pledge was one thing. Living it was something entirely different. For a man like Philip, who was accustomed to command and leadership, adjusting to a role where he walked behind his wife was not easy. In public, he had to follow a few steps behind her, a symbolic gesture that reflected their positions. He later admitted that when he married Elizabeth, he thought he would have a long and fulfilling career in the Navy. But as soon as she became queen, it became clear that those hopes were over. He had to compromise, and he had to do it quickly. Philip tried his best to accept this new reality. He threw himself into supporting his wife and finding ways to make himself useful. But early on, conflicts arose. One of the most significant disputes involved his surname. After Elizabeth became Queen, Philip's uncle, Lord Louis Mountbatten, made a public declaration. He announced that the House of Mountbatten now reigned in England. This statement suggested that since Elizabeth was married to Philip, their children would carry his surname, and the royal house would take his family name. However, Elizabeth's grandmother, Queen Mary, and Prime Minister Winston Churchill strongly opposed this idea. They insisted that the royal family would continue under the House of Windsor, maintaining the legacy of Elizabeth's father, King George VI. The decision was made without much consultation with Philip, and he was deeply hurt by it. He reportedly said that he felt like nothing more than a bloody amoeba, the only man in the country not allowed to give his name to his own children. His words revealed the frustration and sense of powerlessness he felt. When Queen Elizabeth heard about his anger, she decided to make a change. In February 1960, she broke with tradition and announced that her descendants would carry the surname Mountbatten-Windsor, combining both her family name and Philip's. It was a gesture meant to acknowledge his place in the family and ease some of his frustration. But even this compromise could not fully address the deeper issue. Philip was struggling to find his identity within a system that was entirely focused on his wife. As royal consort, Philip's role was undefined. There was no handbook, no clear set of responsibilities, and no precedent for him to follow. He once told an interviewer that when he asked what people expected of him, they simply looked blank. No one had a real answer. The only thing that was clear was that his first duty was to support his wife in whatever way she needed. For a man with Philip's personality, someone who was dynamic, driven, and outspoken, this was an enormous challenge. Yet he carried out his duties with complete devotion. In his early years as royal consort, Philip focused on trying to modernize the monarchy. He believed that if the royal family did not adapt to the changing times, it would become irrelevant, nothing more than a museum piece. But his ideas were often met with resistance. The old guard within the palace wanted to maintain tradition and were suspicious of change. Philip, however, did not back down. He pushed forward with his vision, and in many cases, he succeeded. One of his most significant contributions was proposing that Elizabeth's coronation be broadcast live on television. Many within the establishment thought this was a terrible idea. They believed it would cheapen the ceremony and turn it into a theatrical performance. But Philip argued that it was important for the public to witness this historic moment. More than 20 million people tuned in to watch the televised coronation, proving that he had been right. It was the first time the monarchy had been made so visible to ordinary people, and it marked a turning point in how the royal family connected with the public. Philip also became the first member of the royal family to sit for a television interview. This was another groundbreaking move. A decade later, he took things even further by inviting cameras into the royal residences to film a behind-the-scenes documentary. The idea was to show the public what life was like for the royal family, making them more relatable and less distant. Not everyone agreed with this approach, but Philip believed it was necessary. Beyond television, Philip worked to make the monarchy less rigid and more accessible. He encouraged Elizabeth to end the outdated practice of presenting debutantes at court, a tradition that had long outlived its purpose. He introduced informal lunches and garden parties where members of the public could meet the royal family in a more relaxed setting. He also took charge of reorganizing and renovating the royal estates, making them more efficient and functional. His goal was to reduce the excessive formality that had long defined royal life. With fewer official duties than the Queen, Philip had more time to pursue his personal interests. He was a man of great curiosity and energy. By the 1980s, he had written 9 books on various subjects, ranging from conservation to carriage driving. He encouraged Elizabeth to televise her annual Christmas messages in 1957, and he taught her how to use a teleprompter. He was also the first member of the royal family to use a computer, writing his own emails and speeches long before it became common. Queen Elizabeth did her best to include Philip in her public life. She often referred to him in her speeches, beginning many of them with the phrase, "my husband and I." This phrase became so well known that it turned into a national joke. But Philip was not just a figurehead standing beside her. He played a real and active role in supporting her reign, even if that role was not always visible to the public. In family matters, Elizabeth allowed Philip to take the lead. He was the head of the household when it came to raising their children and managing domestic affairs. But in matters of state, he had no real authority. His opinions were valued, but the final decisions were always hers. This dynamic could be difficult at times. There were moments when Philip treated Elizabeth like an ordinary wife, even in public. For instance, while driving Elizabeth to Cowdray Park, his fast driving made her tense. She kept drawing in her breath at critical moments, and eventually, Philip lost his temper. He told her that if she did it again, he would put her out of the car. Despite being the Queen, she composed herself and said nothing. However, there were also moments when Elizabeth asserted her authority. In front of staff members, she sometimes had to tell him to be quiet, which would frustrate him. He would leave the room in anger, but they always worked through their disagreements. Like any married couple, they had their ups and downs, moments of tension and moments of harmony. One thing that often followed Philip throughout his life was the rumor of infidelity. His naturally flirtatious manner made him the subject of gossip. He was charming and enjoyed the company of women, which led some to speculate about possible affairs. His involvement in activities like a gentleman's lunch club and his tours on the Royal Yacht Britannia in the 1950s fueled these rumors. Over the years, he was linked to several women, including a Russian ballerina, an English stage actress, and a writer. However, none of these alleged affairs were ever confirmed with solid evidence. At one point, a newspaper called the Baltimore Sun published a story claiming that Philip was romantically involved with an unnamed woman. The palace immediately denied the story and dismissed any suggestion of a rift between him and the Queen. Philip himself addressed the rumors with sarcasm. He asked how anyone could believe he could have an affair when he was constantly accompanied by police escorts wherever he went. His point was clear. Having a secret relationship would have been nearly impossible, given his circumstances. Despite the rumors, what remained consistently evident was Philip's devotion to Queen Elizabeth. During their 50th wedding anniversary, the Queen publicly described him as her strength and support throughout the years. They went on to celebrate their diamond and platinum anniversaries together, with Elizabeth always expressing gratitude for his unwavering love and dedication. Whatever challenges they faced, whatever rumors circulated, their bond remained strong. In May 2017, Prince Philip made an announcement that marked a significant turning point in his life. After more than 7 decades of public service, he was retiring from official royal duties. The decision came after years of countless engagements, speeches, and appearances on behalf of the monarchy. At 96 years old, Philip had more than earned the right to step back from the demanding schedule that had defined much of his adult life. However, his retirement did not happen immediately. He continued fulfilling his commitments until August 2nd, 2017, when he attended his final royal engagement with the Royal Marines. Buckingham Palace released a statement confirming that the Duke of Edinburgh would no longer undertake public engagements. The statement added that he might choose to attend certain events alongside the Queen if he wished, but this would be entirely at his discretion. As it turned out, these joint appearances became increasingly rare. Philip had other plans for how he wanted to spend his remaining years. After his retirement, Philip made a decision that surprised many people. He chose to move away from Buckingham Palace and relocate to Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate. This was not a grand residence filled with servants and luxury. Wood Farm was a modest 5-bedroom cottage located in the quiet Norfolk countryside. The property had historical significance within the royal family. It had once been the home of Prince John, the youngest son of King George V and Queen Mary. Prince John had lived there in relative seclusion with his devoted nurse until his death at the age of 13 in 1919. The boy had suffered from epilepsy and the family had chosen to keep him away from public view in this peaceful setting. Philip's choice to live at Wood Farm raised questions. Why would he choose such a quiet, isolated place after spending so many years at the centre of royal life? The answer lay in something Philip had said years earlier. In a 2011 interview when he was 90 years old, Philip stated simply that he wanted to enjoy himself. He had spent his entire adult life in service to the crown, walking behind his wife, attending endless functions, and living under constant scrutiny. Now, he wanted something different. He wanted peace, privacy, and the freedom to live on his own terms. Queen Elizabeth fully supported his decision. She understood better than anyone how much Philip had sacrificed throughout their marriage. He had given up his naval career, his ambitions, and his independence to stand by her side. She knew that he deserved to spend his final years doing what made him happy. Although it meant they would be living apart, she did not stand in his way. When Philip first arrived at Sandringham, he was reportedly horrified to find a busload of staff waiting for him. There were cooks, telephonists, and various other employees ready to attend to his needs. This was exactly what he did not want. Philip had envisioned a simple, quiet life, not one where he would be surrounded by palace protocol and formality. Despite this initial setback, he managed to create the lifestyle he desired. He reduced the staff to a minimum and settled into a routine that suited him. At Wood Farm, Philip finally had the freedom to pursue his interests without the pressures of royal duty. One of his favourite activities was carriage driving. A hobby he had taken up after arthritis in his wrists forced him to give up polo. He found carriage driving relaxing and enjoyed the challenge of controlling the horses. However, as he grew older, even this became difficult. Eventually, he had to stop because he could no longer manage the physical demands of handling the horses safely. Philip also spent time painting watercolours, a creative outlet that brought him satisfaction. He was an avid reader, though he preferred history books to novels. He enjoyed engaging in thoughtful conversations with friends who visited him. These simple pleasures, away from the glare of public attention, gave him a sense of contentment that had been rare during his years of active service. Another thing Philip loved was driving. He enjoyed getting behind the wheel and driving around the Sandringham estate. However, in January 2019, an incident occurred that would change this. Philip was involved in a car accident near Sandringham when he pulled onto a main road. His vehicle flipped over, though remarkably, he walked away without serious injury. However, the driver and passenger in the other car were injured. The accident made headlines, and Philip sent a letter of apology to those affected. 3 weeks later, he voluntarily surrendered his driving license. Buckingham Palace confirmed the decision, stating that the 97-year-old Duke had chosen to give up his license. Despite this, he was still permitted to drive on private estates, and he was occasionally seen behind the wheel at Windsor Castle. What had initially been planned as a short stay at Wood Farm turned into something much longer. Philip did not return to Buckingham Palace to live. He realised that if he went back, he would inevitably be drawn into royal duties and obligations, even in retirement. At Wood Farm, he could truly step away from that world. This arrangement meant that he and Queen Elizabeth spent extended periods apart, sometimes weeks at a time. However, they remained deeply connected. They spoke on the phone every day, sharing details about their days and keeping each other informed about family matters. The Queen also made regular visits to Wood Farm to spend time with Philip. Other members of the royal family visited him as well, ensuring that he was not isolated or lonely. Despite living separately, their relationship remained strong. They had been married for more than 70 years, and their bond had weathered countless challenges. Living apart in their final years did not diminish what they meant to each other. Philip did make occasional public appearances during his retirement, particularly for significant family events. He attended the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle in 2018. He was also present at the weddings of Princess Eugenie, Lady Gabriella Windsor, and Princess Beatrice. These appearances showed that while he had stepped back from official duties, he still valued being present for important family moments. As time went on, Philip experienced one of the inevitable burdens of living a long life. He began losing close friends. Within a single year, 3 of his longtime companions passed away. More people he had known for decades continued to die, including his valet of 40 years. These losses were difficult, but Philip remained remarkably resilient. Despite his advanced age, he stayed physically fit and mentally sharp for the most part, though his short-term memory began to decline as he approached 100 years old. As his 100th birthday drew near, the royal family and the public grew excited about the milestone. Plans were being discussed for how to celebrate the occasion. However, Philip himself was not enthusiastic about the prospect. He disliked the fuss and attention that such celebrations would bring. He had never been comfortable with grand displays focused on him, preferring to stay out of the spotlight whenever possible. During this period, Philip continued to travel between residences. He spent time at Windsor during the Easter Court and often visited Broadlands with Queen Elizabeth. However, he grew less fond of Balmoral in his later years. He cut his visits short in both 2019 and 2020, choosing to return to Wood Farm instead. The Scottish estate, which had once been a favourite retreat, no longer held the same appeal for him. In 2020, the Queen accompanied Philip to Sandringham, and Prince Charles came to visit them there. It was a reversal of roles, with the younger generation checking in on their elderly parents. However, these visits were typically brief. The Queen had to return to her duties, attending to state matters that required her presence. Her role as monarch never truly allowed for extended breaks, even in her 90s. Then, in March 2020, something entirely unexpected happened that would change everything. The COVID-19 pandemic swept across the world and the United Kingdom went into lockdown. Suddenly, normal life came to a halt. Public events were cancelled, travel was restricted, and people were told to stay home. For the first time in years, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip found themselves living together again. Philip left Wood Farm and joined the Queen at Windsor Castle, where they entered what was jokingly called HMS Bubble, a reference to the protective isolation they maintained during the pandemic. For months, they lived together in a way they had not done in years. They stayed in touch with family members through video calls on Zoom, adapting to the technology that had become essential during the pandemic. It was a strange and unexpected turn of events, but it brought them closer together once more. On July 22, 2020, Philip made what would be his final public appearance. He stepped into the quadrangle at Windsor Castle to participate in a ceremony where he handed over his role as Colonel-in-Chief of the Rifles to the Duchess of Cornwall. It was a brief appearance, but significant. This was the last time the public would see him on camera, though no one knew it at the time. In January 2021, both Philip and Elizabeth received vaccinations against COVID-19, administered by a household doctor at Windsor Castle. It seemed like a routine precaution, a sign that they were taking care of their health. However, just a few weeks later, in February, Philip began feeling unwell. He was admitted to King Edward VII Hospital as a precautionary measure. Buckingham Palace assured the public that it was simply a precaution, but concern grew when he remained hospitalised. He walked into the hospital unaided, which was a positive sign, but his age made any health issue worrying. Philip was being treated for an infection, and the palace confirmed that he was responding well to treatment. However, doctors discovered that he also needed a heart procedure. The operation was successful, and after spending several weeks in the hospital, he was finally discharged and returned home to Windsor Castle. The public felt relieved, and conversations about his upcoming 100th birthday resumed. But Philip, perhaps sensing something others did not, showed no enthusiasm for reaching that milestone. He seemed to understand that he would not make it to 100. 3 weeks after returning home from the hospital on the morning of April the 9th, 2021, Prince Philip passed away peacefully at Windsor Castle. He was 99 years old, just 2 months shy of his 100th birthday. Queen Elizabeth was by his bedside when he died, a final moment of companionship after more than 7 decades together. Buckingham Palace released a statement describing his passing as peaceful, and the nation went into mourning. For the Queen, the loss was profound. She later admitted that Philip had left a huge void in her life, one that could never truly be filled. Prince Philip's funeral took place on April the 17th, 2021, at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. Due to the COVID-19 restrictions still in place at the time, the ceremony was much smaller than it would have been under normal circumstances. Only 30 people were allowed to attend, mostly close family members. The image of Queen Elizabeth sitting alone in the chapel, wearing a black mask and mourning the loss of her husband, became one of the most poignant moments in recent royal history. It was a stark reminder of how the pandemic had changed even the most significant of occasions. Philip was temporarily interred at the Royal Vault in St. George's Chapel, placed alongside 25 other coffins, including that of King George III. However, this was not his final resting place. The plan was for him to eventually be moved to the King George VI Memorial Chapel, where he would lie beside Queen Elizabeth when her time came. But there was one unusual aspect of Philip's death that drew considerable attention. His will was sealed and would not be read publicly. The decision was made to keep it sealed for at least 90 years to protect the dignity and standing of the Queen and the royal family. Speculation arose that the will might contain information that could be harmful to the reputation of the monarchy, though no one outside the family knew for certain what it contained. In the days and weeks following Philip's death, members of the royal family spoke publicly about their father and grandfather. Princess Anne, who had shared such a close bond with Philip, offered a heartfelt tribute. She described him as her teacher, her supporter, and her critic. She expressed deep admiration for the life he had lived and the service he had given so freely. Anne spoke of his ability to treat every person as an individual, recognizing their unique skills and contributions. This, she said, was a defining trait that stayed with him throughout his entire life. Princess Anne also acknowledged the vital role Philip had played in supporting Queen Elizabeth when she ascended to the throne at such a young age. She noted that his unwavering support had given her mother the confidence to rule effectively during a time of tremendous change and challenge. Without Philip by her side, Anne suggested, Elizabeth's reign might have been far more difficult. He had been her rock, her constant companion, and her most trusted advisor, even if his role was never formally recognized in those terms. Prince Charles also paid tribute to his father in the days after his death. He spoke of the remarkable devotion Philip had shown to the Queen over 70 years. Charles admired his father's dedication and the astonishing energy he had brought to supporting his mother throughout their marriage. He acknowledged that Philip had sacrificed his own ambitions and desires to fulfill his role as royal consort, and he expressed gratitude for everything his father had done for the family and the nation. Charles's words reflected a deep respect for the choices Philip had made and the life he had lived. Prince Andrew, recalling family moments, spoke of Philip as a father who truly cherished his time with his children. Despite the demands of royal life and the challenges of his position, Philip had always made time for his family. Andrew's memories painted a picture of a man who, behind the public persona, was warm, caring, and deeply invested in the lives of his children and grandchildren. These tributes from his children revealed the many sides of Philip's character, showing that he was far more than just the Queen's husband. About a year after Prince Philip's death, Queen Elizabeth spoke publicly about her late husband during a visit to Scotland. She reflected on the deep and abiding affection she and Philip had always held for the country. She mentioned the many happy memories they had created together during their visits there over the years. Her words were filled with emotion as she acknowledged how much she missed him. She spoke of how places are made special by the people who inhabit them, and Scotland had always been one of those places for her and Philip. The bond they shared with the country was something she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Although Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth had spent their final years living apart, the separation had been by choice and for practical reasons. Philip had wanted peace and simplicity in his retirement, free from the demands of royal protocol. Elizabeth had understood and supported this decision, knowing that he had earned the right to live as he pleased. Their daily phone calls and regular visits had kept them connected, and when the pandemic brought them back together, they had those final months side by side. In many ways, their relationship had come full circle. Philip lived a remarkable life, one filled with adventure, service, and dedication. From his early days as a naval officer to his decades as royal consort, he had adapted to roles that were not always easy or clearly defined. He had modernized the monarchy, supported his wife through countless challenges, and raised a family under the intense scrutiny of public life. His wit, his drive, and his commitment to duty had left a lasting impact on the royal family and the nation. On September 8, 2022, just over a year after Philip's death, Queen Elizabeth II passed away at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. She was 96 years old and had reigned for 70 years, longer than any other British monarch. Her death marked the end of an era, one that had been defined by her steadfast devotion to duty and her deep love for her husband. Following her death, she was laid to rest beside Prince Philip at the King George VI Memorial Chapel in Windsor Castle. Even in death, they were reunited, just as they had been for most of their lives. The decision to place them together was a fitting conclusion to their story. Despite the years they had spent living apart, despite the challenges and complexities of their relationship, they had remained devoted to each other until the very end. Their love had endured through decades of change, through personal struggles and public scrutiny, through triumphs and tragedies. In life, they had supported each other through everything. In death, they would rest side by side for eternity. Looking back at Prince Philip's decision to live away from Queen Elizabeth in his final years, it becomes clear that there was no hidden scandal or dramatic rift. He had simply wanted to enjoy the peace and freedom that retirement could bring. After spending his entire adult life in service to the crown, walking behind his wife at public events, and sacrificing his own ambitions for her role, he had earned the right to live as he chose. Wood Farm offered him the quiet, simple life he had long desired, away from the formalities and demands of palace life. Queen Elizabeth understood this better than anyone. She knew what Philip had given up for her and for the monarchy. She respected his decision and supported him in finding the happiness he deserved in his final years. Their daily phone conversations and regular visits showed that their bond remained strong, even when they were not living under the same roof. The love and respect they had for each other never wavered. Princess Anne's revelation about why her father chose to live separately was not a scandal, but rather a testament to the understanding and mutual respect that defined her parents' marriage. Philip had wanted peace, and Elizabeth had wanted him to have it. It was as simple and as profound as that. Their relationship, which had spanned more than 70 years, was built on a foundation of love, loyalty, and an unwavering commitment to each other. Even when circumstances required them to live apart, that foundation remained unshaken. The story of Prince Philip and Queen Elizabeth is one of enduring love, sacrifice, and partnership. It is a reminder that even the most public of relationships can have private complexities, and that true love means supporting each other's needs and desires even when they lead to difficult choices. Philip's decision to live at Wood Farm was not a rejection of his wife or their marriage. It was simply a man seeking peace in his final years, with the full blessing and support of the woman he had loved for a lifetime. And when the end came for both of them, they were together once more, just as they had always been meant to be.